First contact gone wrong. The Zeravian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, their massive ships casting long shadows across the void. On the command deck of the flagship Inevitable Conquest, High Commander Vrax studied the blue-green planet displayed on the main view screen with cold, calculating eyes. "Is this the one?" he asked, his four-fingered hand tapping impatiently on the arm of his command chair. Science Officer Tella nodded, her scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the tactical displays. "Yes, Commander. Third planet from the star. The humans call it Earth. Preliminary scans show a technological civilization, but nothing that could threaten us. They haven't even colonized their own moon properly." Vrax's mouth twisted into what passed for a smile among his species, a predatory baring of teeth. The Zeravian Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the last decade alone. This would be the 18th. "Send the standard greeting," he ordered. "Let's see if they're smart enough to surrender." 22 light minutes away, in the United Earth Defense Command bunker beneath the Himalayas, General Maya Chandra stared at the incoming transmission with a mixture of hope and dread. Humanity had been expecting first contact for decades, but not like this. Not with a fleet of warships larger than anything Earth could muster. "Are we sure about the translation?" she asked the team of linguists and xenobiologists who had been working nonstop since the alien fleet was detected crossing Neptune's orbit. Dr. Elias Cohen nodded, his face grim. "It's clear enough. They're demanding our immediate surrender and integration into something called the Zeravian Empire. They've given us 12 hours to respond." Maya closed her eyes for a moment. 12 hours to decide the fate of humanity. "Get me the Security Council," she said, "and prep the Eris Protocol, just in case." The United Earth Security Council convened virtually within the hour. Representatives from every major nation appeared on screens surrounding Maya, their faces tense. "The aliens are called Zeravians," Maya explained. Their message was clear: surrender or face extinction. "But there's something else you should know." She nodded to Dr. Cohen, who projected a series of images onto the screens. "We've been monitoring their communications. They see us as primitive, barely worth their attention. They're already dividing up our resources, our territories." Cohen's voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. "They don't consider this a war. They consider it a harvesting operation." The Chinese representative, Minister Lai, spoke first. "What are our options, General?" Maya took a deep breath. "Militarily, we're outmatched. Their technology is at least a century beyond ours. But we have two advantages. They're underestimating us, and we have the Eris Protocol." The room fell silent. The Eris Protocol was humanity's last resort plan for an alien invasion, a plan most had hoped would never be needed. "You can't be serious," the Russian representative said. "That would mean abandoning Earth." "Yes," Maya finished, "temporarily. But it would give us a chance, a fighting chance." Debate raged for hours as the deadline approached. In the end, they made their decision with just moments to spare. Maya composed the response herself, a message of apparent capitulation hiding a deeper truth. On the Inevitable Conquest, Vrax received the human response with satisfaction. "They surrender as expected," he told his officers. "Begin the landing sequence. I want control of their major cities within 6 standard cycles." Tella frowned at her readings. "Commander, I'm detecting unusual activity in Earth orbit and on their moon. Large numbers of small spacecraft leaving the surface." Vrax dismissed her concerns with a wave. "Refugees, nothing more. Let them flee to their orbital habitats. We'll deal with them after we secure the planet." What Vrax couldn't see was the true scope of humanity's evacuation. For decades, Earth's nations had been secretly preparing for this possibility. Vast underground complexes on Mars housed fusion reactors and manufacturing facilities. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn concealed research bases where scientists worked on technologies still theoretical on Earth. And deep in the Kuiper Belt, Hidden shipyards had been constructing vessels designed for a war humanity had prayed would never come. As the Zeravian dropships began their descent to Earth, they encountered only token resistance. Earth's military forces fought bravely but were quickly overwhelmed by the aliens' superior technology. Cities fell one by one as the invaders established their dominance. From her new command center on Mars, Maya Chandra watched the occupation of Earth with a heavy heart but steely resolve. The Ares Protocol had worked. The Zeravians believed they had won a quick, decisive victory. They had no idea that Earth's surrender was just the first move in a much longer game. "Status report," she commanded, turning to her staff. Colonel Jackson, her operations officer, stepped forward. 93% of designated personnel successfully evacuated before the Zeravian blockade was established. All key research and manufacturing facilities in the outer system report ready status. The Ghost Fleet will be operational within 6 months. Maya nodded. "And Project Phantom?" Dr. Cohen smiled for the first time in days. "The prototypes work, General. The Zeravians won't know what hit them." On the view screen, a Zeravian flag was being raised over the ruins of New York. The sight filled Maya with rage, but also determination. The aliens thought they had conquered Earth. They believed humanity had surrendered. They were wrong. Maya opened a channel to all human outposts throughout the solar system. Her message was brief but powerful. "This is not the end. This is just the beginning. Earth may be occupied, but humanity is not defeated. Remember the oath we all took. We will return. We will reclaim our home. And the invaders will regret the day they ever set foot on our planet." As her words echoed across the solar system, preparations began for a resistance unlike anything the Zeravian Empire had ever encountered. They thought they had conquered a primitive species. They would soon learn that humanity does not surrender. It adapts, it evolves, and it fights back. The war for Earth had only just begun. The silent resistance. 3 months into the occupation of Earth, High Commander Vrax was growing increasingly frustrated. What should have been a routine integration of a new conquered world into the Zeravian Empire had become a logistical nightmare. Another facility destroyed. He growled, glaring at the holographic report hovering before him. The projected image showed the smoking ruins of what had been the largest Zeravian processing plant in North America. "How many does that make this week?" 7, Commander, replied Security Chief Morton, his posture stiff with discomfort. "All hit with the same methods. No detectable approach, no warning, and no survivors." Vrax slammed his fist on the table. "I want answers. Where are these attacks coming from? How are they penetrating our security systems?" The truth, though none of his officers dared say it aloud, was that the Zeravians had no idea. Earth should have been pacified by now. The humans had surrendered, their militaries crushed, their leaders captured or killed. Yet something was wrong, deeply wrong. The planet felt empty. Census data showed that nearly 30% of the human population was unaccounted for. Initial theories suggested a plague or mass suicide before the invasion, but no evidence supported either scenario. It was as if a significant portion of humanity had simply vanished. More disturbing were the attacks. Zeravian bases and processing centers were being hit with devastating precision. Yet no human attackers were ever seen. Security cameras would show nothing, then a flash, then destruction. No alarms triggered, no perimeter breaches detected. "It's as if they've become ghosts," Morton muttered. Vrax fixed him with a cold stare. "There are no such things as ghosts, Chief. Only enemies we haven't caught yet." He turned to Science Officer Tella. "What about the anomalous readings from the outer system?" Tella's scales shifted nervously, changing from their normal green to an anxious blue. "Still inconclusive, Commander. We detect unusual energy signatures around Mars and the moons of Jupiter, but nothing that matches known human technology. Our long-range scanners can't penetrate whatever shielding they're using. Send a destroyer squadron to investigate," Vrax ordered. "I want those outposts neutralized." What Vrax couldn't know, was that humanity had been preparing for this moment ever since the first extraterrestrial signals were detected decades ago. The Ares Protocol wasn't just an evacuation plan. It was the activation of humanity's hidden technological revolution. On Mars, in the vast underground complex known as Olympus Base, Maya Chandra reviewed the latest mission reports with grim satisfaction. The quantum displacement teams were exceeding all expectations. 3 more processing plants destroyed, reported Colonel Jackson, now her second in command. 0 casualties on our side. The Phantom suits are performing even better than the simulations predicted. Dr. Cohen, looking older after months of non-stop work, added, the Zeravians still have no countermeasures for the quantum displacement technology. To them, our soldiers are literally appearing out of nowhere, planting the charges and disappearing again. The technology behind Project Phantom had been theoretical before the invasion, a way to shift matter slightly out of phase with normal spacetime, rendering it effectively invisible and intangible to conventional detection. The desperate conditions of war had accelerated its development from theory to practical application in months rather than decades. Maya studied the holographic map showing Zeravian positions across Earth. Red dots indicated their bases, processing centers, and command posts. Nearly 20% were now marked with black X, destroyed by the invisible resistance. What about the civilian resistance network? She asked. A communications officer spoke up. The quantum entanglement communicators are working perfectly, General. The resistance cells have organized in every occupied territory. They're following the protocol. No direct confrontation, just intelligence gathering and occasional sabotage to keep the Zeravians off balance. Maya nodded. Earth's apparent surrender had been calculated to buy time. Time they had used well. While the Zeravians consolidated their control of the planet's surface, humanity's real power was growing in the shadows and beyond Earth's gravity well. And the Ghost Fleet? She asked, turning to Admiral Reyes, who commanded humanity's hidden armada. The Admiral's hologram smiled confidently. First Squadron is fully operational, General. The quantum drive systems have been integrated into all vessels. 20 more ships will be ready by month's end. The Ghost Fleet represented humanity's greatest technological leap, warships equipped with both the Phantom quantum displacement technology and a revolutionary propulsion system that allowed them to move without conventional engines. No heat signature, no radiation emission, virtually undetectable until they chose to reveal themselves. The Zeravians are sending destroyers to investigate our bases in the outer system, Maya informed them. Admiral, I think it's time for the Ghost Fleet's first combat mission. Reyes nodded grimly. With pleasure, General. Days later, the Zeravian destroyer squadron approached the orbit of Mars, weapons charge. Captain Zelk of the lead destroyer Merciless watched the red planet grow larger on his view screen. No signs of human activity on the surface, reported his sensor officer. Wait, I'm detecting some unusual energy patterns near Olympus Mons, but... The sensor officer never finished his sentence. Without warning, alarms blared throughout the ship as weapons fire seemed to materialize from empty space, striking the Merciless with devastating precision. What's happening? Zelk shouted as his ship shuddered under the impact. Where is that coming from? On his tactical display, nothing appeared. No enemy ships, no launch points for the weapons tearing his squadron apart. It was as if the void itself had turned against them. In reality, 5 ships of humanity's Ghost Fleet surrounded the Zeravian squadron, their quantum displacement fields rendering them completely invisible to the alien sensors. They fired with perfect accuracy, their advanced targeting systems unaffected by the phase shift. Within minutes, 4 of the 6 Zeravian destroyers were crippled or destroyed. Captain Zelk, realizing the impossible situation, gave the only order he could. Retreat. Maximum speed back to Earth. As the 2 surviving Zeravian ships fled, Admiral Reyes allowed himself a moment of satisfaction aboard his flagship, the Defiance. Should we pursue, Admiral? asked his tactical officer. Ray shook his head. No. Let them run. Let them tell Vrax what they saw, or rather, what they didn't see. The psychological impact would be as important as the tactical victory. Let the Zeravians know that they faced an enemy they couldn't detect, couldn't fight in conventional ways. Let fear begin to erode their confidence. On Earth, Commander Vrax received the devastating news with cold fury. The loss of 4 destroyers to an invisible enemy was not just a military setback. It was a direct challenge to Zeravian dominance. Impossible, he snarled. No species we've ever encountered has technology like this. Science Officer Tella, braver than most, ventured a response. Perhaps that is why they surrendered so easily, Commander. They were not admitting defeat. They were changing the battlefield. Vrax's eyes narrowed as the implications sank in. Had the humans fooled them? Had the seemingly primitive species been concealing their true capabilities all along? Before he could respond, an alarm sounded. On every Zeravian communication channel throughout Earth, on every computer terminal and display screen, the same message appeared, transmitted simultaneously to every Zeravian installation worldwide. You came to our home uninvited. You took our world by force. Remember this, humanity does not surrender. We adapt. We evolve. And we are coming for you. This is your first and final warning. Leave our world while you still can. As the message faded, Vrax realized with growing dread that the conquest of Earth had been an illusion. The real war was just beginning. The Ghost Fleet, the Zeravian command center beneath what had once been Geneva, was in chaos. Reports flooded in from across the planet and the inner solar system. Attacks on supply convoys, mysterious failures of critical systems, entire outposts going silent. Most disturbing were the accounts from the survivors of the Mars expedition. Weapons fire from empty space, ships destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see or fight. High Commander Vrax paced the command floor, his normally composed demeanor cracking under pressure. 6 months into what should have been a routine planetary integration, the Zeravian occupation force was on the defensive. Bring in more battleships, he ordered. I want 3 full battle groups positioned around this planet. Nothing gets in or out without my authorization. His officers exchanged uneasy glances. It was Science Officer Tella who finally spoke up. Commander, with respect, more ships may not solve our problem. If the humans truly possess this quantum displacement technology, conventional defenses may be ineffective. Vrax rounded on her, teeth bared. Then what do you suggest, Science Officer? That we simply abandon a conquered world because of some primitive species with lucky technology? Tella's scales paled slightly at his anger, but she held her ground. I suggest we reconsider our assessment of these primitives, Commander. The evidence indicates they allowed us to believe they were less advanced than they actually are. Before Vrax could respond, the main view screen flickered to life without command. A human face appeared. A woman with dark skin, silver-streaked black hair, and eyes that burned with quiet intensity. This is General Maya Chandra of the United Earth Defense Force, she announced. I'm speaking to High Commander Vrax of the Zeravian Empire. The command center fell silent. This was impossible. Their communications were secured with the most advanced encryption in the Empire. Yet this human had bypassed it, as if it were nothing. Vrax stepped forward, drawing himself up to his full height. I am Vrax. How dare you infiltrate our systems? Your resistance is futile. You may have some clever technology, but the might of the Zeravian Empire cannot be denied. The human's expression didn't change. Look up, Commander. Despite himself, Vrax glanced at a nearby tactical display. It showed Earth orbit, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Where moments before there had been only his fleet and orbital debris, now hundreds of ships had appeared, surrounding the Zeravian vessels in a perfect blockade formation. They had materialized from nowhere, bypassing every sensor and alarm. This is just one squadron of the Ghost Fleet, Maya continued. We have more, many more. Your ships in Earth orbit are now surrounded. They will be allowed to leave peacefully, if they leave immediately. This is not a negotiation. Vrax fought to maintain his composure. You expect me to believe this display? This could be a trick, a projection. Maya's expression hardened. Check your long-range scanners, Commander. Your reinforcements from the Zeravian homeworld, the 3 battle groups you just requested, they've been intercepted at the edge of the solar system. Frantic activity erupted around the command center as officers verified her claim. The looks of horror on their faces told Vrax everything he needed to know. This is impossible, he whispered. You're just humans, primitive humans. That was your first mistake, Maya replied. You judged us by our visible technology, not by our potential. Your second mistake was attacking a species that has spent its entire history fighting and adapting. We may fight amongst ourselves, Commander, but we unite against outside threats. On the main tactical display, Vrax watched in disbelief as his ships in orbit began to report critical systems failures. Propulsion, weapons, life support, all shutting down simultaneously. What have you done? He demanded. Quantum infiltration teams, Maya explained, almost conversationally. While your attention was on our visible fleet, soldiers in phantom suits boarded your vessels. They disabled critical systems, but left life support intact, for now. Throughout the solar system, the full might of humanity's hidden capabilities was being revealed. The Ghost Fleet, ships equipped with both quantum displacement technology and advanced weapon systems, had moved into position over the past months, establishing an invisible perimeter around Earth and the inner planets. On Mars, Admiral Reyes watched the operation unfold with grim satisfaction. Status report, he ordered. All Zeravian capital ships in Earth orbit have been neutralized, his tactical officer reported. Their reinforcements at the system edge are surrounded. Ground forces are cut off from orbital support. Reyes nodded. And our losses? Minimal, sir. The quantum displacement fields held. They never even got a lock on our ships. It had been a near-perfect operation, the culmination of 6 months of preparation, testing, and small-scale engagements designed to mislead the Zeravians about humanity's true capabilities. Back in the Geneva Command Center, Vrax struggled to comprehend how completely he had been outmaneuvered. The humans had surrendered Earth only to lure the Zeravians into a trap. While the aliens believed they were consolidating their conquest, humanity had been surrounding them with forces they couldn't detect or counter. What are your terms? He finally asked, the words bitter in his mouth. Maya's expression remained impassive. Unconditional withdrawal from Earth and the entire Sol system. A formal acknowledgement by the Zeravian Empire that Earth and all human colonies are sovereign territory, never to be threatened again. Vrax's mandibles clicked in agitation. And if I refuse? Then this conversation is over, Maya replied simply. And so is your occupation force. To demonstrate her point, one of the disabled Zeravian battleships in orbit suddenly exploded in a brilliant flash of light. That was the Indomitable. Maya noted, your flagship. Consider it a sample of what happens next if you choose to continue this war. Throughout the Zeravian Command Center, officers watched their commander with tense anticipation. The Empire had never retreated, never surrendered a conquered world, but they had also never faced an enemy like this. Vrax's mind raced through scenarios, searching for a way to turn the situation to his advantage. But the cold equations were undeniable. His forces were surrounded, outmaneuvered by an enemy with technology that rendered conventional tactics useless. I require time to consult with the Imperial Council, he said finally. Maya shook her head. You have 1 hour, Commander, not a minute more. As the communication ended, Vrax turned to his officers. Options, he demanded. Security Chief Morden spoke first. We have no options, Commander. Their quantum technology renders our advantages meaningless. They can attack us at will, while we cannot even detect them until it's too late. What about the ground forces? We still hold the planet's surface, another officer suggested. Science Officer Tella laughed bitterly. And what good is that? They've neutralized our orbital ships. They can bombard our positions at will. And how many of our ground bases have already been destroyed by attackers we couldn't see or stop? The truth settled over Vrax like a shroud. For the first time in his long career, he faced not just defeat, but annihilation. The Zeravian Empire had encountered many species, conquered many worlds, but never anything like this. "Begin evacuation procedures," he ordered, the words like ash in his mouth. "All forces to withdraw from Earth in sequence, beginning with non-essential personnel." As his officers rushed to comply, Vrax stared at the tactical display, showing the ghost fleet surrounding his trapped armada. The humans had outfought them, turned their arrogance against them. They had made the Zeravian Empire regret ever setting foot on Earth. The price of arrogance. The evacuation of Zeravian forces from Earth proceeded under the watchful eyes of humanity's ghost fleet. From his temporary command post aboard the Relentless, the last Zeravian battleship still operational in Earth orbit, High Commander Vrax oversaw the humiliating retreat with tightly controlled fury. "Status report," he demanded, not looking at his officers. 70% of our ground forces have been evacuated," replied Operations Officer Krell. "The human vessels continue to maintain their blockade formation." "They're watching us, Commander." Vrax hissed softly. The humans hadn't fired on the retreating Zeravians. They didn't need to. The demonstration of their technological superiority had been enough. The Ghost Fleet ships materialized and dematerialized at will, sometimes appearing just long enough to remind the Zeravians of their presence before vanishing again. It was psychological warfare of the highest order. "And the Imperial Council?" Vrax asked, already knowing the answer. Science Officer Tella stepped forward, her scales a dull gray, the color of resignation among her kind. "They have accepted the human terms, Commander. A formal treaty acknowledging human sovereignty over the Sol system is being prepared." The admission cost her visibly. The Zeravian Empire had existed for over 1,000 years, expanding relentlessly across the galaxy. Never in their recorded history had they been forced to retreat, to acknowledge defeat. Until now. No one contradicted him. Failure in the Empire was not tolerated, especially failure of this magnitude. On Mars, in the heart of Olympus Base, General Maya Chandra watched the Zeravian retreat with mixed emotions. Victory brought relief but not joy. Too many had died in the initial invasion for celebration to feel appropriate. "The last of their ground forces are boarding transports now," reported Colonel Jackson. "Resistance teams confirmed the Zeravians are abandoning their bases worldwide. They're even removing their equipment, as specified in the terms." Maya nodded. "And our casualties?" "Minimal. The quantum displacement technology gave us the edge we needed. Total human casualties during the counteroffensive, 117. 117 lives lost to reclaim a planet, a remarkably small number for such a victory, but still 117 too many in Maya's mind." Admiral Reyes, joining via hologram from his flagship, added, "The Ghost Fleet performed beyond expectations, General. The Zeravians never managed to lock onto our ships or detect them before we chose to reveal ourselves." "What about the captured Zeravian technologies?" Maya asked, turning to Dr. Cohen. The scientist smiled wearily. "Already being analyzed, General. Their FTL drive is particularly interesting, more efficient than anything we had theorized. With this technology, and what we've developed ourselves, humanity's reach will extend far beyond our solar system." Maya absorbed this information silently. The Ares protocol had been designed as a desperate measure, Earth's last hope in case of hostile first contact. Instead, it had become the catalyst for humanity's greatest technological revolution. The quantum displacement technology, the Ghost Fleet, the advances in propulsion and weapons systems, all developed under the pressure of survival. "The Zeravians did us a favor," Admiral Reyes observed, reading her thoughts. "They forced us to achieve in months what might have taken decades in peacetime." Maya's expression hardened. A favor bought with millions of lives in the initial invasion. I wouldn't call that a bargain. In Earth orbit, the last Zeravian transport ships formed up around the Relentless. High Commander Vrax stood on his bridge, watching the blue-green planet recede on his view screen. The world that had broken the Empire's undefeated streak. The world that had broken him. All forces accounted for, Commander, reported Captain Loris, ready to proceed to the rendezvous point at the system edge. Vrax nodded silently. As the Zeravian fleet prepared to depart Earth orbit for the last time, a communication request flashed on his private channel. Without thinking, he accepted it. General Maya Chandra's face appeared on his screen. This time, she wasn't in a military command center, but what appeared to be a simple office, with Earth visible through a window behind her. They were back on their world already, reclaiming it even as the Zeravians departed. Commander Vrax, she acknowledged. General Chandra, he replied stiffly. Have you contacted me to gloat over your victory? Maya shook her head. No. I contacted you to make something very clear. This war is over, but the memory of it will remain. Vrax's mandibles clicked in irritation. Is that a threat? It's a reality, Maya replied calmly. Humanity now knows we're not alone in the galaxy, and that not all who travel the stars come in peace. You've taught us a valuable lesson about preparedness. For that, at least I thank you. Vrax studied her, trying to understand the strange species that had defeated the mighty Zeravian Empire. You could have destroyed us completely, he said finally. Your ghost fleet had us surrounded, helpless. Why show mercy? Maya's expression remained steady. Because we're not you, Commander. Humanity has its flaws, many of them. But wholesale slaughter of a defeated enemy isn't our way. At least, not the way we choose to be. You believe this makes you stronger? Vrax asked, genuinely curious. I believe it makes us different, Maya replied. And difference is what you failed to understand about us from the beginning. You saw a technologically inferior species and assumed that meant we were inferior in all ways. That arrogance was your downfall. Vrax couldn't argue with her assessment. The Empire had categorized humans as primitive based on their visible technology, never considering that there might be depths to the species they hadn't detected. What will you do now? He asked. Your world is damaged. Your population traumatized by our occupation. We'll rebuild, Maya said simply. We always do. And we'll reach out to the stars. But cautiously now, with open hands and ready weapons. As their conversation ended, Vrax gave the order for the fleet to depart. As the Zeravian ships accelerated away from Earth, he received one final transmission, not from General Chandra, but broadcast on all frequencies for every Zeravian to hear. Remember this lesson. You came to our home uninvited. You chose this war. And you lost. If you or any other hostile force returns to the Sol system, the outcome will be the same, except next time, we won't be as merciful. This is humanity's first and final warning to the galaxy. We want peace, but we are prepared for war. The message continued to play as the Zeravian fleet reached the edge of the solar system, a constant reminder of their defeat. For High Commander Vrax, the words burned into his memory, a lesson paid for with his honor and the Empire's unbroken record of conquest. The humans had been right all along. He regretted this war, more than they could possibly know. In the years that followed, Earth rebuilt. The technologies developed during the conflict transformed human society. The quantum displacement drive opened the stars to human exploration. The Ghost Fleet expanded, becoming both Earth's shield and the vanguard of peaceful exploration. General Maya Chandra, standing on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, watched a squadron of Ghost Fleet ships shimmer into visibility above the city. A training exercise and a reminder to Earth's population that they were protected. The Zeravian Empire has formally acknowledged our boundaries, Admiral Rice reported, joining her at the viewport. Our diplomatic missions to other star systems report that news of the Zeravian defeat has spread. We're being approached with offers of alliance, trade agreements. Maya nodded. And the expansion of the defense network. On schedule. We'll have early warning outposts at every major approach to the system within 2 years. No one will ever catch us unprepared again. The lesson of the Zeravian War had been learned well. Humanity would reach for the stars with hope and optimism, but also with the wisdom born of hard experience. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, more united, more determined. As Maya looked up at the Ghost Fleet ships gliding silently above, she thought about the message they had sent to the retreating Zeravians, the warning to the galaxy at large. It wasn't just bravado or empty threats. It was a promise. Humanity was ready for whatever the universe might bring. Peace or war, friendship or conflict. They had been tested in fire and emerged tempered, stronger than before. The stars awaited, and humanity would meet them on their own terms.